Hello, welcome back.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Episode, what is it, 7?
episode 7. I'm kind of losing track now. I mean, here we are, our own personal project here, Odyssey, with Parth and Matthew here.
Yep.
Yeah, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, man. It's my birthday
Oh yeah,
today. So
it's his birthday, everyone. Oh my God, happy birthday!
everyone sing happy birthday for me. I'm just
Yes,
kidding.
that is true.
Um,
Well, happy birthday. I mean, how old
Thank
are you
you.
now?
Thank
Can I
you.
say
I'm
that
22
publicly?
now. Uh-huh.
22. Wow,
Yeah,
we're the
yeah.
same age. How
We're the
about
same
that?
age. Yep, yep.
Well, I hope
It was
everyone's
good.
doing okay,
Yeah,
especially
everything
the
was good.
listener
What was that?
and you. What did you do today, actually? Let's go with that first.
Just did some editing, for a different podcast I'm doing, and then I went out to dinner with my family, which was nice. I went to my favorite restaurant. So I love Mexican food. So I cannot not have Mexican food at least a few times a
Crazy to think
week.
about, right?
It really is, yeah.
Indian guy loving Mexican food.
Seriously.
Good to know.
But yeah, no, everything else was good. Regarding birthdays, I don't celebrate birthdays like I used to. And what I mean by
You
that
kind of
is
grow out of it.
I
Yeah.
grew out of it. I don't. In fact, it's almost a little bit of an annoyance now because everyone is like, they're hitting you up, and it's like, people that you haven't talked to in years and years, and it's
Oh, you
like,
got that?
I got a few of those, and then I appreciate the effort. Don't get me wrong. I really do appreciate the birthday wishes, but it's not of any importance to me anymore. I feel like I'm not really. I try to live every day like it's my birthday. You know what I mean? So it's not like
Every day's a party.
every day's a party, man. My life is just one big party.
Why not? You only live once.
Seriously, dude. I like that mentality.
Oh yeah, I knew you would. But yeah, I
So
mean, I
yeah,
feel the same way, to be honest, when it comes to birthdays. It's kind of like you grow
yeah.
out of it, and then I kind of convince myself where it's like, birthdays are really for other people to get together and have a good time, especially for the
Seriously.
family. It's like, all
It,
right,
the
we'll go
perfect
out.
excuse.
The perfect excuse to do anything. It's your birthday. Let's get high or drink or go to dinner.
Seriously.
Nothing wrong with that. It's just, it's not what it used to be when you were a kid.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So yeah, we have a lot of things to talk about today,
We
or not to
do.
talk about today. So,
We'll see how it
so
goes.
we're experimenting, folks,
Yep.
with
Yep.
this project that we're going to introduce. We're going to have an episode dedicated to news and another
Yep.
episode dedicated to education. So,
Yes.
in
We
regards to
usually
that, the
film.
news. Go for
Yeah,
it.
we usually film twice a week, right? So one episode would be dedicated to news, and the other one would be dedicated to the education portion. The news one would just be, talking about current affairs, that sort of thing, and our thoughts on it. Just almost kind of like a news show. You can't really rely on media nowadays. They're so
Without the
biased.
commercials, yeah,
Yes, without the
and the
commercials.
biasness. We'll
Exactly.
see how it goes. Maybe it'll be really terrible, but
Yeah, yeah.
honest
You want to
opinion.
explain the education?
The education one is just we're going to focus on a topic, right? And then not only are we going to learn about the topic, but you, the listener, are also going to learn something as well. So
Yep.
that'd be something new
Co-students.
to kind of, yeah. I mean, we're all students
Yep.
here.
Students of
No one knows
life.
everything. No one's an expert, truly. So
Yep.
we'll have fun with
Exactly.
that this weekend, probably when we record that episode.
Yeah.
But in regards to the news, there's a lot going on right now. So it is February 25th right now, and when I look at the news on my phone, I get a lot of stories about the following: R. Kelly, the Oscars. The Oscars just happened yesterday, actually. So there's a lot of talk about that. And with any award show, there's always a lot of coverage in respect to the media.
Yeah.
And we also have a lot of things in respect to Trump's border wall that's still going on. Uh,
Okay.
So I'm pretty sure you know about that and small details on what's going on, like how he announced a emergency and he's going to
Yeah.
attempt to
That's
build a
all I
wall.
heard. That's all I heard, and all I know is that he's going to redirect some sort of funding from what is it, the military and a few other departments to the construction of the wall.
Okay, yeah. So, as the president, I think he has you know, this right to pretty much invoke anything in respect to the military, I think. So I think the military is down there helping out, um,
Okay.
and in other businesses as well. But in regards to the state of emergency, he's been tweeting things like, we have a state of emergency at our southern border. Border Patrol, our military, and local law enforcement are doing a great job. But without the wall, which is now under major construction, you cannot have border security. Drugs, gangs, and human trafficking must be stopped. So he tweeted that recently. Actually, today in the morning at 3 o'clock. So
Wow.
he's getting kind of serious. Do you think he's gonna actually win in regards to getting this project finished?
It's kind of tough to know for sure, but to be quite honest, I do think he is going to get it done one way or another. That's just what I think is going to happen. And now, what I mean by done is not necessarily finished, but I think a good portion of that wall will be done, especially by the 2020 elections. Now, how he gets it done, I don't know. If he is within it is within his jurisdiction or his power to invoke this to grab funding from different departments and declare national emergency. If nobody sues him, I think wasn't it like 15 states were suing him for this?
California included, yeah.
Yes, yeah. So now, under the assumption that the suits will go straight by without any effect, and it really is within his power, yeah, I mean, I think he can get it done. Maybe not exactly how he envisioned it, but I mean, it's a wall, right? That's what they asked for. So, I mean, I don't know. Only time will tell.
Yeah. It's
What do you
it's a
think?
big it's a big thing now. I mean, this whole idea of border security. And I'm looking at a chart here at BBC in respect to the news, and it shows a decrease in migration in respect to the U.S. Mexican border and how it's decreased from 2000 to 2018. So it looks
Okay.
like here it started at a total number of 1,600,000
Yeah.
migrants in 2000, and it's dropped down to nearly 400,000 in 2018. Wow.
Yeah,
I don't
approximately
know how true that
400,000.
is, but that is kind of a decrease, to be honest.
That's a 75% decrease.
I know, right? Jeez. I mean, I'm pretty sure the border wall has some effect in respect to migration, but you're always going to have migration in general, right? There's no way you're going to stop every migrant from getting into the U.S.
Right, and I think I think there should be a distinction between illegal immigration and actual, legal immigration. Um, my parents and I were talking about this one time, or actually not my parents, no, one of my Indian friends and I were talking about this, and she was saying how there's so many relatives that she has in India waiting in line to come to this country legally, and they're going through this whole process, and how it's not really fair that the neighboring country gets to just illegally cross over more easily, let's say, than an Indian person would. I think the second most number of illegal immigrants after coming from after Mexico is India, from what I've
Okay.
heard. I
Oh,
don't know how that's possible or what.
is that
I guess it's
possible?
paperwork. Yeah, it must be paperwork or something like that. But from what I know, it's India, which is wow. I was shocked.
Yeah,
So
I would think it would be like Europe or maybe even like China,
the
even
Middle East or something. Yeah.
something like that. Yeah, but you know, the general idea is everyone wants to get into America one way or another, and there's always going to be migration in the future, right? So
Right.
It's really interesting. But I want to talk about the legal process into actually getting into the United States because we don't
Yeah.
have that issue because we're already U.S. citizens. So
Okay.
I don't actually know the trouble that people have to go through in respect to entering the country legally. Do you know like any facts on how to get into
Um,
the country legally? Any?
I'm not 100% sure how the process works. Although my parents did go through it, they had to see. I think the ambassador in a city. I don't know what it was. They had an in he. My dad had an interview for what's called a green card. And the green card is essentially something that will allow you to come here. And you're not necessarily a citizen, but it will allow you to come into the country, and then you have to go through this whole naturalization process to become a citizen. Now, I don't know what that process is like or how long you have to wait or any of that sort of thing. But one of my friends recently actually was naturalized, actually just a few weeks ago, and
Oh, okay.
I was actually testing him on some of the questions that they could potentially have asked him in the interview, and they were just simple. Not all of them were simple, but they were simple for maybe you and me because we grew up here and we learned about U.S. history and that sort of thing, right? But the questions were something along the lines of, um, if the president and vice president die, then who becomes the president after that, right? And that would be Speaker of the House, and just government type questions, that sort of thing that will make sure that the person at least has a basic understanding of how the country functions, right, and what the country was founded on. Because if they don't know that, then if they become a citizen, they have the right to vote, and if they have the right to vote, they should know at least the basics of how this country operates, what it was founded on. The idea of freedom, what the Constitution is, the amendments to the Constitution, the first 10 being the Bill of Rights, and what those 10 Bill of Rights were, to be able to list at least one or two of those. Now, I'm not saying all people who went through the naturalization process know this, but they are at least sort of expected to. And they had this whole list of like 100 different questions that they could potentially ask. Now, I think they only ask 1 to 3 questions out of this
Oh,
100 out of these
really?
100 questions. Yeah. It's not like this full-blown like history test or anything like that, It's just a
Yeah.
couple questions here and there just to kind of verify who you are, what you're doing here. Do you seem like you're gonna, be a productive member of society? That sort of thing. And
I
if
think,
you're good to go,
yeah.
that's it.
I think it's so complicated because many people who migrate to the U.S. they don't have a lot of documentation in respect to their their identification and where they're from. I think most of them are like refugees or they're trying to get away
Yeah.
from something bad in their homeland. So I'm looking at the process right now, and it looks like they have to go through a lot of things. Like they have to apply, and then they have to pay for fees, and then they have to bring identification and documentation, and they have to speak English, at least to some degree, in order to get naturalized.
Right.
So it's a lot of obstacles to go through. You got to go through an interview. You got to answer questions. You got to meet with some sort of I don't know immigration agency. So, you know,
Yeah.
I could see how it gets backed up in respect to the
Oh
people
yeah.
coming in, and
Yeah.
it can get frustrating. I think because there was that whole thing back in like a couple months ago, I think, where the children were being separated from their parents, and then
Right.
that was a big thing blowing up on media where they were keeping the children in these camps, and the left called them
So,
prisons.
I forgot the exact story behind that. Wasn't it that, you know, these Donald Trump essentially ordered these kids to be put away into these not I mean they called them prisons and camps. So that's grossly exaggerated because they are nothing like they make it sound like if as if it was a concentration camp or something like that when it had like TVs and everything like that in there. Um, so it was definitely grossly exaggerated. Now, there was a reason behind that, wasn't there? It was something along the lines of like um, if they didn't separate the kids, then they would have to take the kids away into custody as well, or so I don't know what it was. I forgot. There
What I
was
heard from
a
the news, it was I think if the parents were convicted of a crime or if they were somewhat bad in a sense in respect to their
right,
documentation or identification, they were separated. Well, the parents had to go back to where they came from because since they have like a bad record, they couldn't be admitted
right.
right away.
Uh,
So in respect to that, the children were left without a guardian. So I think the
oh,
border patrol took it upon themselves to actually, give them shelter or give them some sort of place to sleep. So
right. A prison, in other words.
a, a prison in respect to the leftist terms, but it's it's kind of complicated on that whole situation because there's so many people giving different views, and I never got the straight story. Like I don't know
Same.
why there were so many children. Maybe that was the plan. Maybe the parents knew they weren't going to get in, but they said, as long as my kid gets in, maybe that's good enough. So
Oh yeah, no. I know a lot of these parents would want to sacrifice for their kids. A lot of these right wing news, like news outlets, would say things like they're using their kids to as like shields to get in or something like that, and they're
oh
dragging
yeah,
these kids along. And um, I don't know what it was. There were some stories about like how these kids, a lot of these girls, also these young girls, have to be prepared for rape and things like that. Now, the mothers mothers and fathers will still bring them along. You see, and I forgot where I read this or what happened, but they have to prepare for that, and it's a harsh reality out there. Obviously, it's not something that's just I mean, it's a hot button issue for a reason, but I feel like yes, it's very difficult to get the proper news on this. Like, where do you go to get unbiased news on this type of thing?
it's hard to tell because you know that major news outlets on TV like CNN, Fox News, heavily biased, and nowadays people are getting tired of the news, to be honest. So they're looking toward different alternatives.
Seriously,
Maybe even this
I heard.
podcast.
Oh yeah, no. So I think people are turning to podcasts honestly because, from what I know, about 70% or no, about 30% of CNN's viewers were lost since the election, and that's a huge chunk, in my
Yeah.
opinion, because of all the vehement hatred towards Donald Trump that's sort of unjustified. A lot of it. Some of it may be justified, but it's a little excessive because, especially online on like Facebook and Instagram, you'll see articles that are written by certain journalists from CNN that they're so ridiculous. Things like Donald Trump got 2 scoops of ice cream instead of one, like the rest of the people at the dinner. How
That is
much
a
of a
serious thing.
dictator is he going to be?
That is
It's
a
like, are you
serious issue.
kidding me? How you're the number one news media outlet in the country, and you're so biased and hateful that you're gonna twist this little ice cream story into a dictatorship style. Like, how does that even? First of
Wait,
all,
you're not kidding? Was that actually a
no,
story?
that was an actual story. In fact,
Look
let me
that
try to
up.
find it. Let me try. I'm going to send this article to you. Um, but
Hold on, folks. We got to verify this ice cream story before we go anywhere.
yes.
I don't know because Trump lives for the media, and in respect to that, it's just anything he does. Oh, I found it. Trump gets 2 scoops of
There it
ice
is.
cream. Everyone else gets one, and the other top lines from his time interviewed. Okay, so I don't understand. Yeah, it was on CNN, and two
Yep.
scoops of ice cream. Oh wow.
So
He's
here's what it is. President Donald Trump is living every child's dream: more ice cream. According to an extensive interview with Time magazine, Trump's White House staff has settled into Trump's routine and know his desires sometimes before he does. For example, Trump takes 2 scoops of ice cream with his chocolate cream pie, Time reported, while everyone else around the table gets just 1. Oh my God.
They're a pretty legit news outlet when they have to report what the president eats. So
Yeah.
who can blame them?
Seriously, then they try to twist it into, I don't know. It's such a stupid thing, in my opinion.
Okay, back to the real news.
Yes.
What we were talking about, the children that were imprisoned, apparently.
Yeah.
So, looking at an article here by National Public Radio, and it looks like the largest facility they have is in Tornillo in remote West Texas. About 2,800 children live there, essentially. So they're actually currently. So this camp can hold up to 3,000 children. Okay, and it can house up to 3,800 children. But they need more staff for that amount of limit.
Right.
So they're really trying to manage the situation here. I mean, that's a lot of children, and that's a lot of immigrants. To be honest, I'm pretty sure a lot of them are not legal U.S. citizens. So perhaps all of them. So that is crazy to think about.
Mm-hmm. What is your opinion on illegal immigration, just in general?
In general, I think you have to go through the process. I think for border security, obviously it's important, right? So we should have walls, obviously. Right. We should have security checkout lines at airports, so TSA doing their job.
Right.
Safety of the people are very important, so we can't have foreigners basically taking advantage of the security in respect to the borders. So my general view is security is necessary. Very much walls are necessary.
Okay.
And this whole border wall, I was initially for it because I thought of it as like an upgrade to the current wall, which is not that great. It's like I don't know. It's like just fence and people can climb it, things like that.
Okay.
So I'm like, okay, why not upgrade? Make the border security's job a little easier because they're doing a lot of work down there.
Okay.
But now it's turned into this huge political, heated argument about morality and, the idea of America, how we accept all immigrants, and they bring out the history books, the leftist people, and they're like, well, we're all immigrants, and then they bring up all these different arguments and try to get people sidetracked.
Right.
So that's how they play. They play very dirty. But we're literally talking about a wall. I mean, people are getting upset over concrete. So
I seriously, I can understand if people, and see, here's my thing, right? I can understand if people were angry if we were banning immigration, right? Just
flat out, yeah.
Flat out, yeah. But we're not banning immigration. We are stopping something that was already wrong. There are reasons, I was studying, one of my economics classes at UCLA was talking about how population affects the overall productivity of an economy. And there's an actual reason why we, have to slowly let people in. Because if we do not let people slowly in, right? If there's no process, okay, everybody's going to want to come in, right? This is the most prosperous country on earth, okay? The whole system will be fucked if that happens. We do not have the resources or the capabilities or the jobs or the whatever, all these things to be able to support all of these people. Does that make sense? It's much more. It's a much better to get those people to improve their own country economically. Does that make sense? Now, there are some people who will theorize out there and say that America's so evil that they are. Have you heard of the concept of brain drain?
Vaguely.
So brain drain is that they will offer the greatest jobs and a lot of money and prosperity to the smartest people of different countries so that those people will migrate to America and So they're basically draining all the smartest people from all around the world. So there's no one left in those countries to actually help them get better and to help them grow economically, to become more prosperous like America, to have a society and that is set up like America. Because otherwise, why else would what? I just don't understand why people hate on America so much in this country when it's done so much for them, and they have no perspective of the outside world and how terrible it can be, especially in third world countries like India. I've been there myself, so I know. A bit, just a few times that I've been, I don't want to go back. It's just bad, right? Now,
Yeah.
that being said, I would love to allow every Indian person to come into America. Hey, come on in, That's not feasible. And it's not only not feasible, then none of this will be prosperous. Does that make sense?
I think we're very pragmatic in respect to this kind of issue. We're very realistic, and our
Right.
rational thinking takes this to different levels, right? So we think about economic, we think about, just the
The
standard
system in
of
general.
living in
Yeah.
general.
Yeah.
Because, I haven't traveled outside of the U.S., to be honest, but you have.
Right.
So you've experienced firsthand what it's like to not be in America, and you came back real quick, I assume. So it's
Right.
it's an odyssey. It's a mystery
Yeah.
how people think like this and they hate America. Because I'm looking at this graph right here, this little image. Heroin seizures by Border Patrol sector in 2017. And we got a pretty little map here in respect to the southern border.
Right.
We have places like San Diego, El Centro, Yuma, Tuscan, El Paso, Big Bend, Del Rio, and Rio Grande. So they're showing statistical percentage numbers on the pretty much the capture of heroin, illegal
Right.
drugs going through the border. And it looks like here in 2017, the highest amount of heroin caught was in San Diego.
Wow.
I mean, it is a big issue in respect to the drug and trafficking in respect to that. Not only do they go through the border wall, but they also go through, the Caribbean Sea over here, near Florida, things like that. So
Uh-huh.
another reason why a border is kind of helpful, because
Right.
it gives the border patrol security another tool to fight against this type of trafficking. And I think they deserve some credit because they're constantly doing their job. And not many
Yeah,
people
yeah.
really realize how much danger they're in every day.
No,
And
yeah, definitely. It's funny. I remember I had a friend who, actually, we both know this guy. I'm not going to name names right now, but he mentioned how a better solution to the wall would be drones, where we have these little drones patrolling the border, and these drones would kind of let you know where people are illegally crossing, and then you can send the border patrol there to stop them, right, or to have the drones follow them. Now, I don't know how feasible that is. It seems like a very expensive idea, way more than a wall. But he said, walls, they don't work because these cartels will dig tunnels under, and they have done that already. Now, here's the thing. It's not necessarily the cartels I think are what, like 1% of illegal immigration, 3% of illegal immigration that make up. I don't know the stats, but it's like a very, very small percentage, okay? It's not, the wall would not necessarily be there to stop the cartels all the way, right? It's
yeah,
mainly illegal immigration, just in general, okay? And that would apparently stop a lot more than we think, right? Israel has a southern border wall, I think, or southern or eastern or something like that. And so they have found it to be very effective. And there are, I think Guatemala has a wall. or Honduras or some Latin American country has a wall, and these are things that see the what is that, the Jerusalem Post?
Yeah, it looks like here they're talking about. What are they talking about here? They're talking about Israel's border walls, a case study for Trump's mantra. Let's see here. It looks like, according to international law, a key criteria for statehood involves a government's control over clearly delineated borders. This standard has become increasingly relevant in the United States amid an ongoing debate over President Donald Trump's proposed construction of a wall along the Mexican frontier to curb the flow of illegal immigration into the country. Um, so it looks like here it's just they're comparing his idea of a wall with Cario, apparently, in respect to Egypt.
Right.
So I think there's a border between Egypt and what's the country? Syria? Is that what it is? In the Middle East? Um, but I think
Okay.
Egypt has their own border in respect to like all the commotions that's going on in the Middle East.
I
Um,
see.
so they mainly did it for migration. I think it says today there are approximately 40,000 African migrants and asylum seekers in Israel, according to the Interior Ministry. About 70% are, I don't know what that word is, some sort of African uh, group there,
Eritrean,
Eritrean
Eritrean.
and Sudanese. Uh, Almost all of them have arrived between 2006 and 2012. Um, in 2010, the height of the wave, about 1,500 illegally crossed from Sinai into Israel each month. Uh, so it looks like they have a migration problem themselves.
Right.
And with Israel's southern fence halting immigration completely, both the Trump administration and many U.S. advocates of tougher immigration policies have taken notice. Okay. Notably, Elta North America, a subsidiary of Israel Aerospace Industries, was one of the 8 companies chosen to build a prototype for the planned wall along the frontier with Mexico. So I think it's just a case study in respect to uh, the border patrols in Middle East and how they have a migration issue in respect to
Right.
Israel. So I think in respect to the Middle East, they kind of need border walls because there's a lot of
Yeah.
violence that's going down there. And
Hey, by the way, one quick thing, if you don't mind, would you mind saving those posts or keeping those posts open? I might just end up putting that in the description of the link for YouTube, so
oh, good
people can
idea.
take a look at
Yeah,
those posts.
yeah. What we're looking at here, we're sharing screens right now over Skype, so we're kind of researching as we talk here.
Right.
So yeah, this is kind of interesting to be honest. I mean,
Yeah.
what do you think honestly in respect to having a border and keeping your inside territory safe? Because
Um. Yeah. So, uh, I know I'm going to make a weird connection here. Right. So now I'm not saying that this is any sort of justification because this is a very complex issue. But I remember reading in a book called The Way of Men by Jack Donovan that men used
hmm
to masculinity and traditional and conventional masculinity would have these tribes, right? And there would be tribes back in those days, and the border would be secured by these men just guarding the border. Essentially, they would walk around the border. Think like, for example, if you've seen the movie Mulan at the very beginning, right? There's Chinese soldiers walking along the wall of the Great Wall of China, and this Hun soldier comes over and they've invaded China or whatever, right? So it's these men's job to secure the border of their tribe, meaning everything on the outside, whether that's ghosts or wild beasts or other human beings or zombies or whatever the hell on the outside, is a potential enemy, okay, or a potential threat, and you have to stand your guard and keep anything from entering, going past you, essentially. And everything on the interior is your tribe, and everything is safe. So this would be your boundaries. These would be your borders. Okay. And it was essential back in those days to create borders because no one knew what was safe and what was not safe, right? And this would also be because other villaging tribes would come and raid your tribe, take your resources and your women, and kill you essentially as a man, right? Now, I think a lot of this idea behind keeping borders tight and secure and not letting people on the other side over so easily goes way back. All right, borders make up what a country is, right? But what makes up a country then? It's a certain way of living. It's a certain ideal. It's a certain standard of living. It's a certain economy, a way of thinking. It represents something like, in this case, in America's case, freedom, right? Now, what would happen is if you had no borders at all, right? What would happen? There would cease to be a country, essentially, meaning the country would still be there, the ideas would still be there, but it would not be clearly defined. That boundary not being there would almost make you lose your identity as well, right? Because everything is going to start to mesh here and there. And here's the thing, right? People bring in their ideas as well when they migrate. It's not just them, right? We have to consider this as well, is that you have people coming in from all around the world. The reason why we have them, part of the reason I think is why we have them take all these tests to understand American history and everything like that, is that we want them to know what this country stands for, what the ideals have been. Be an educated person before, you bring your ideals into this country and start to change those ideals, right? So for example, if you had someone, let's say back in the 1950s or 60s or 70s, come in from the Soviet Union, okay? These are people who could potentially support communism. And they would end up supporting policies, let's say, if they're not educated on what has made America such a great country and how in the past, and how it's skyrocketed from practically nothing to the world's greatest superpower in the past 250 years, and has provided such a great life for the people that live here, at least economically and by standard of living. You have to understand these kinds of things, right? What leads you to a great economy, things like the legal system, right? Private property rights. The English common system was something that you have to consider. That affects our economy as well. Now, people don't have these things overseas. They don't have, I know I've heard of a case in the Philippines where they don't have private property rights. So what happens is you have a certain property and anybody can come and just take it away, and there's no legal enforcement of that. Or if it is, then you would have to go through a very, very arduous process to keep your property. Things like that, right? Now, if you're going to bring in those ideas from around the world by way of migration, and we just let everybody in and all their ideas in, what happens? Our countries will start to slowly change. But we don't want that. Why? Because what's worked in America has been fantastic so far. It's worked the best around the world. And this is the reason why we are here today. You see what I'm saying? Why we are so highly admired and people want to be here. You see, but a lot of people will not understand that they're also bringing their ideas. Now, I'm not saying we should not let people in. I'm saying that, take the time to understand who is coming in. Does that make sense? If in an ideal world, we can let everyone in and America would be able to support them and nothing would change and everything would be la-di-doo-dah, whatever, great. It's not going to work that way, though. You see what I'm saying? There's a certain amount of rationality you have to have. There are consequences to all of these actions, right? The emotional part of your brain says, morally speaking, we should let everyone in because it's like, it's just the right thing to do, like you can't let people on the outside, come in, but there's other consequences, like I said. So I think it's important to take a look at the whole picture, see the consequences, and then decide. It's not an easy solution one way or the other. If you immediately thought, we can't have a wall, that's immoral, like that's wrong. But if you also immediately thought, damn, we need a wall, like, because Trump says so, that also may be wrong. Take a look at the whole situation, right? That's my opinion on it, and come to a proper and rational conclusion.
I mean, it definitely is a type of moral standing that most leftists, and even celebrities today, they uh, they go behind in respect to going against the wall. Um,
Right.
but I mean, we can
I
all
don't listen
agree
to
that we,
celebrities, by the way.
yeah. I mean, who does in respect to rational thought? But
Yeah.
we all believe in walls. That's the ultimate argument, right? Because we all have houses, and we all sleep
Yeah.
with walls around us. I suppose, because
Right.
in a sense, even Democrats believe in walls because most of the politicians, they live in wealthy communities, either gated communities or nice houses with a bunch of security. Um, so in retrospect, they're kind of hypocrites, to be honest, when they go against the border security.
I I 100% agree. And on top of that, I remember watching this video of Barack Obama, of Chuck Schumer, of Nancy Pelosi, these top level Democrats who are going hardcore against border security now. But if you go back, you can find clips of them years ago saying we need strong border security. We cannot continue to allow illegal immigration to happen. And they were saying these things. There are video clips of this. I'm sure you can find them online. And it's so hypocritical because all of a sudden people change, right? Their platforms change as over time, right? Like no idea is strictly set in stone. I get that. But to me, it seems like the only reason you're going against it now is because Donald Trump is saying it. And it's politically correct to go against Donald Trump. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's the ultimate bandwagon right now, I believe.
Yeah.
Kind of sad.
And
I mean,
yeah, yeah.
no rational thought, just outbursts of emotion, and we keep having this conversation over and over again. It's just,
Seriously.
it gets exhausting. And oh
Yeah.
wow, Julia Dreyfus actually protested the wall as well. She's Elaine
Oh
from
yeah.
Seinfeld.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
She's a famous
I
comedian.
remember. Yeah.
Who listens to comedians? To be honest, when it comes to political views, I mean, even Joe Rogan confirms that. He's like, if you listen to a comedian about real life issues, there's something wrong. I'm pretty sure he has that kind of
Seriously,
context.
I remember watching a segment from the Dave Chappelle show. I think it was the Dave Chappelle show. Have you heard of him?
Yeah, I've heard of him.
So Dave Chappelle was saying it was just making fun of Donald Trump and talking about this and that, blah blah blah, and the crowd is like eating it up and everything like that, right? And I'm thinking to myself, okay, like what the guy is saying is hilarious. By the way, I love Dave Chappelle. He's freaking funny as hell.
Yep.
But again, that's not necessarily a reason for you to listen to him because he has some sort of celebrity authority. This is not a rational thought, right? These people are not professionals in their field. They are attention getters. They know how to get attention. It's like people like Cardi B. I remember Cardi B posted this video. I think I might have mentioned it earlier about how this government shutdown is super immoral because of all the workers that are being, not allowed to work. And I remember thinking to myself then and there, I was like, didn't I read somewhere that Trump was going to sign some sort of document that was going to, or some sort of bill that was going to pay these federal workers for the time that they were not on work, and that's exactly what ended up happening. He
Oh,
signed
really?
something to to pay them. They
Huh.
still got paid, and they didn't have to work.
Yeah.
I read this somewhere. I'm like, and how many people will know that now? They won't.
They
But
won't.
at least 10 million people have listened to Cardi B. That one video, it had like 11 million views or something like that. They listen to that and they think, damn, Trump is such a bastard for, not having paid these employees. It's so immoral. And just to get a damn wall, which is not even a moral thing in the first place. Now, this is the kind of thing that happens when you don't do your research. You see?
Yeah.
So celebrities
Jeez.
is not a good idea to listen to.
Cardi B has 5.2 million followers on Twitter. So
Five
that's a
point
lot
two
of.
million.
Yeah. I thought it'd be higher, to be honest.
Okay, maybe it was 1 million people, viewing
1
that
million?
video.
Okay. A large amount of people, pretty much.
Large amount, yeah.
Large amount of people. Oh, horchata. Um, she. I like that drink.
Yeah.
I mean, celebrities, they have such influence, right? And
Right.
I don't know if the country is shifting rapidly towards celebrity, I guess what we call um, ad- adoring. Because Donald Trump was somewhat of a celebrity, right? When he was running for president, he was part of the show.
Yeah. Yeah.
I forget what was the name of the show. I
The
forget what it
Apprentice.
was. The Apprentice. So he was kind of a public figure in the
Right.
beginning, and I think from now on, people are going to be aiming toward public figures in general, right? There's not going to be another Reagan. Oh wait, no, Reagan was a public figure as well. He was an actor.
Yeah, no, he was an actor, yeah.
Yeah, so
And he
yeah,
was
my point.
beloved.
He was beloved, right? They are beloved. These public figures, people who run for president, it gives them a bunch
Yeah.
of influence.
It's funny, Ronald Reagan ended up winning his first election with 44 of the states. He won his second election with 48 of the states. They almost all voted for him. He won almost every single electoral vote in the electoral college.
Every single one.
Almost every single one.
Oh, look at this. Okay,
Yeah,
so
270towin.com. That's the website. That's the website I saw it on.
1984 presidential election, and it looks
Yeah.
like Ronald Reagan won by a landslide.
Oh yeah. The one state he did not win was Minnesota,
Minnesota, I think it is. Yeah, MN.
Hawaii.
Hawaii? No, he won Hawaii right there.
Oh, okay. So which one? What else? So he won 49 of the states. Then
49 of the states. Uh, well, the score was 525 to 13 in respect to the electoral votes, I believe.
okay.
But yeah,
Interesting.
I think the only state he didn't win was what's that state right there? I forget my geography.
Which
Above,
one? Where?
next to Wisconsin,
Minnesota.
Minnesota.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow, that is a landslide.
By the way, I found this Cardi B video, 19.8 million views, almost 20 million views.
That's a lot of views. Is that a
Oh
music
yeah.
video?
No, it's the video where she talks about the
What?
illegal, yeah, the illegal immigration thing, the not the border wall shutdown, essentially the government shutdown, and how federal employees are not getting paid.
Oh, really? Is that a Twitter post or is it like a
It's Instagram.
Instagram? Okay.
Yeah,
Jeez.
I have a few friends, in fact, close friends here who have liked the video.
Oh, really?
Oh wow, a lot of people that I follow. Like 20 or almost like 13, 14. Wow, almost 20 people that I know have liked that video.
Oh, you're looking at Instagram right now?
Oh yeah.
Jeez, that's a lot of people. But
Wow.
how many people do you think really listen to Cardi B?
I hope not many.
Just in
I
general.
seriously hope not many.
It's just a public figure to go after, right? I mean, you
Yeah.
like them because you like the image they're portraying. So I think Cardi B is just a not a fake celebrity, but more of a um, like a public entertainer, like a public pleaser. She's
Right.
constantly, you know, looking toward just pleasing people in general because I think that's what her job is as an entertainer.
Yeah, yeah. She is an entertainer, right? She has to dramatize this whole thing.
I
She's gonna
believe
have
so.
to
Yeah.
say like, "Oh my God, you guys, this is getting so serious. You have to watch out because racism and all this stuff." And then people applaud the shit out of her, right? There are like 20 million people saying, "Ah, my God, Cardi B, Cardi B."
That's
And
exactly what
I'm
it
just
sounded
like,
like. Yeah.
are you serious? Are you serious?
Okay,
No, not all of them.
I'm gonna name off a few Instagram models and see if you know any. Okay,
Sure.
Kendall Jenner,
I've heard of her.
heard of her. Uh, Cara Delevingne, is that how you pronounce it? This girl?
Mm,
I've never heard of her, to be honest. And then
Delavine?
Gigi Hadid.
Gigi Hadid. My sister
Hadid.
always talks about her.
Oh, is she Indian?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know.
I do not know either, but apparently she is number three in respect to top influential Instagram models.
Wow.
Chrissy Terringen.
I have no idea.
No idea. Yeah, the rest are just. Oh, this girl.
Instagram model.
This girl was the Emily Ratajkowski or something like that. She was popular from Robin Thicke's Blurred Line video.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she was a famous girl. And everybody else I don't know. None of which I follow, to be honest.
No, me either.
Yeah, because they kind of bombard your feed with like, a near nude shot or like some kind of like
Oh,
exotic
Wolfie
picture.
Cindy. I follow her, actually. She's the one person on that list, the first one. Cindy Kimberly.
Cindy Kimberly.
That's the first girl that's been there that on that list that I actually follow.
Oh,
She's hot.
yeah,
That's why.
she sounds kind of familiar. She's pretty much every guy's excuse to follow any girl. But
Seriously.
I've heard of her.
My
Actually.
sister was
Is she
like,
just a
she
model?
got plastic surgery. Huh?
She got plastic surgery.
That's what my sister says.
Okay, so it must be true. 19 years old. Wow, she's very young. She's younger than us, dude. We're freaking
Oh,
old.
what?
Oh wait, no,
She
at
looks
just
kinda
19 years
older.
old. So we don't know her age right now. She was one of the youngest Instagram models on the list. YouTube channel, 4.7 million followers. I don't know where she's from, but she's highly influential. We got a Japanese girl here, or no, Korean. Sorry, my bad.
Right.
Jeez, it's a lot of influencers. Yep.
Yep. You were telling me about R. Kelly, by the way. What is that
Kelly.
again? Or who is that again?
So R. Kelly is a famous R&B singer. I think back in the 80s, back in the 90s, he was very popular. He's a African American singer. So yeah, in 1993, Kelly went solo with his album 12 Play, but his real fame was during the 1980s. So
Okay.
recently in the news, he has been charged with a bunch of sexual abuse charges. So
Whoa.
back in the day, I guess when he was at his top game, and he was still the alpha male, he had a lot of options, I guess, in
Right.
terms of like, women here and there. He was really famous. He had a lot of money, so he was very attractive.
Right.
And apparently he had relationships with underage girls, which is now
Oh.
being addressed. And apparently evidence is popping up here and there. And by evidence, I mean actual video of him with these underage girls. And he is currently now he's in jail as of right now because he can't afford bail.
Oh.
He's being charged with a bunch of sexual abuse cases, and overall just a bad time for this guy. But you never heard of R. Kelly?
No. R. Kelly, I feel, has he had any recent songs?
Recent songs? I don't think so. I think his latest hit was like in 2005, 2003 maybe.
Yeah, probably not. No.
Yeah, he's a famous R&B singer.
Okay.
Pretty famous, yeah. But it's crazy because he's another successful black guy, African American, who's being torn apart. Maybe for good reason. I'm not trying to defend him, but
Right. As
pretty
compared to
sure.
like Bill Cosby, right?
right. And I'm pretty sure he deserves all this that's coming toward him. because
Right, right. Especially if there's evidence against him and it's clear evidence. Yeah.
it is pretty clear, I think, and I think he's going to go to jail for a long time, or maybe just for the rest of his life. But I mean, when someone has that kind of power and that kind of fame, they can get carried away pretty easily, right? Like they can think they're the top guy or they're the untouchable figure, so they can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
And I think society now is trying to destroy that kind of behavior in general.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
you got figures like Bill Cosby, R. Kelly, Harvey Weinstein, other comedians like uh, Louis C.K. Um, they're
Oh
all
yeah, he got
being
charged also, didn't
he
he?
got charged as well, yeah. And then he tried to come back and they shut him down
Oh,
again. So
dude,
yeah,
Henry Cavill, the guy who played Superman, got charged. Or did he get charged or something?
no, he just got a lot of backlash, I think, or a
Okay, he
lot
got a lot
of
of back.
meme.
Oh, that's right, that's right. He posted something on Twitter, I think, about how he likes being a traditional man who pursues women or something like that. Um, and all like a bunch of these feminists came after him and just destroyed him. And I'm like, dude,
Yep,
this is like the most gentlemanly, if that's a word,
gentlemen,
kind of guy you will meet.
it's crazy
You
to think
know,
about. I mean, successful man, white, good looking. Got to take him down, right?
gotta take him down. Oh man,
Crazy to think
he just got
about.
to get older. That's the one thing he's missing. That's
To
the
fit the
old
bill
white male.
completely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then he's done for.
Yep.
Crazy to think about. I think what motivates that kind of behavior is people's hate for successful people is so large that it just causes them to do irrational things. Really.
Okay.
I mean, the left really they have this moral high ground argument that they love the poor, and that they're for equality and all these rights, and everyone is owed something in respect to the government. But I'm pretty sure that their hate for the rich is overpowering their love for the poor. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. That's funny. That's actually something that's something that Jordan Peterson was also saying. And when he used to be a socialist back in the day, the reason he stopped was because he could feel that what you just said. There was more of a hate for the rich than love of the poor, right? I think what he was trying to drive home is that human beings by nature desire power in some way, shape, or form, and that is a strategy actually. If you ask a lot of people questions about this kind of thing, they really won't know it. They just want to be at the high end. They want to be this heroic figure who wants to, drive the revolution forward to get rid of all the racist white old Republicans from, Congress and whatever. Change America for the better and all these things that you're 100% right. They take the moral high ground, and what I'm not saying that they're wrong in some of their in 100% of their approaches, but they take it so far. They take us to a violent degree, and when you have your moral high ground as your only real strategy, it kind of fails over time. I think in the last couple of years, we are starting to see sort of a shift in our culture, a slight bit of a shift more back to the right, because people are seeing, and I think it has a lot to do with Donald Trump and the hate that he's getting that's excessive, and it's not a lot of it is not irrational hate. And people are starting to open their eyes because of podcasts popping up, right? Joe Rogan, the Dave Rubin Report, just all these podcasts where they actually discuss ideas, real diverse ideas. They're not even all conservative. Some of them are more libertarian, but they just, more rational thinkers, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. To be honest, I'm looking at a list right now of the cases against certain men. They seem to be all men, to be honest, of the Me Too movement. So there's going to be listed here 201 men who have lost their job in respect to the Me Too movement. So I just saw
Wait,
names like
how
Kevin.
many?
It said 201.
Okay. And these are famous people.
Apparently so. So you have people like Kevin Spacey, Louis C.K., Matt Lauer. He was a famous news anchor man.
Okay.
Other guys I've never heard of, like Angel Arcee and Jeff Franklin. Who else is here? Paul Shapiro. Apparently he's the vice president at the Humane Society, and it shows their
Okay.
replacement too, in respect to who took their job, who replaced their job. We got a governor here, Eric Grittins, who resigned after he was accused of taking an explicit photo of a woman without her consent and threatening to blackmail her. He said he had an extramarital affair by
Extramarital?
extramarital affair by denied breaking any laws. Wow. He was indicted on a charge of invasion of privacy, but it was dropped. And
Uh,
that was recent. That was January 10th, 2018, last year.
wow.
Wow. That's a lot of people. I mean, what do you think about the Me Too movement in general? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, definitely. So the Me Too movement. I think I think it's nice that, women are able to actually be able
Empa-
to come out
Empower.
more. Yeah, they're empowered to the degree, because right, there are a lot of women out there who were afraid to come out and say, like, I've been raped or I've been sexually abused or whatever the case may be, right? I think there's a balance to it, though. The problem comes in where there are false allegations or false accusations that come out as false eventually, and what ends up happening is it delegitimizes anybody else who comes after, right? Or maybe not delegitimizes them, but it will at least be cause enough to doubt, at least a little bit, the following stories in the Me Too movement. So, and especially if the movement picks up irrationally, if people like Henry Cavill get hate for stupid things like, tweeting how he likes to be a traditional man, and he gets a bunch of hate from feminists and talking about Me Too and this and that or whatever. That's stupid, in my opinion. That's the part where it's very bad, and it's actually almost it's a downside for men, because you have to be extremely careful now. If you do something even slightly wrong and you have some sort of fame, or your status is very high, you have, and this girl maybe, let's say, has a hatred for you, she may, very well may, put false allegations against you, saying, you sexually abused her or whatever. Now, I'm not saying every single case is like that. Of course it's not. But if there has been a case, and there probably has been, because it's very easy for people to, like, by default, believe the woman because she's just because of the fact that she's a woman, which is absolutely incorrect, and you should not do that. You have to look at the evidence and actually logically look at what is going on there. But, people will side, a lot of the times people will side with the woman because she's a woman, and because it took her so much effort to come out, and, so much courage to say it and everything. And I get that, right? I get that. And it probably was hard for her. But that does not dismiss the fact that you have to still look at the evidence. Does that make sense? You're accusing someone of something that's so atrocious that it's going to ruin their life if they are found guilty. It's going to destroy their life if they are found guilty. So you cannot automatically believe the woman. It's so stupid. That reminds me of the Brett Kavanaugh case, where if there's no substantial evidence, this guy has worked his entire life, and this is his dream position, to get into the Supreme Court. Many lawyers out there love to be in his position, right? To
Yeah.
be to have the shot at the Supreme, court, which is the highest court in all of the land, right? How can you, without any substantial evidence, in fact, there was evidence against, Christine Blasey Ford, in the case of, what was it? Her ex-boyfriend said like she was having an affair or something like that. And he came out with a letter and said she's not trustworthy or whatever, something like that. And they kind of just dismissed that from the media. Like it did not get too much attention, right?
Yeah.
Now, what is it? The narrative became, poor Christine Blasey Ford. It must have taken her so much. It must have, been so hard for her to come out and really, I guess, come out and accuse Kavanaugh. Now, here's the thing, right? You're in high school. It was 36 years ago. If anything even happened, there seems to be no
70s,
evidence against that. Huh?
Yeah. I think it was like in the 80s something. 1980s.
Yeah, something like that, right? Now, people will argue, okay, well, if it did happen, would you want a guy like that in the Supreme Court? Probably not, especially when you have him making decisions about, Roe v. Wade, and if, whether or not to distribute that power to the states and things like that, abortion, whatever. But that being said, again, in this country, it is innocent until proven guilty. It's not guilty until proven innocent. And that system was, back in Britain, it was guilty until proven innocent. You have to prove yourself innocent when you are charged of something, which in my opinion is the dumbest thing ever, right? In this country, we adopted a different way of thinking, which is innocent until proven guilty. You have to have evidence. If you're going to accuse someone of something like this and ruin their entire life and you don't have the proper evidence to do it, I don't give a shit how much guts it took for you to come out and say it. It doesn't make any sense of you taking away this man's dream job, something that he's worked probably his entire life to see. And in an instant, you're going to take it away from something that happened, may or may not have actually even happened in high school. Does that make sense?
It does make perfect sense. I mean, just the fact that the accusations themselves can pretty much tear apart a person's career, and that's a very scary thing. It's a new weapon that the Democrats have under their belt, and they're going to use it quite often in the 2020 election, I think. So be prepared for that kind of nonsense.
Yeah.
I mean...
But then guess what? The patriarchy gets away with it again, It's like, see, those evil men, they got away with it again.
They can no longer be in power. You got to take them down, rise up, increase our
seriously. And
to Twitter.
It's funny. It's so funny, dude. I'm actually starting a YouTube channel where we make different like comedy videos and skits and everything like that with some friends. And one of the skits we made, my sister is actually involved in this. One of the skits we made was where one of my guy friends is actually dating my sister, and they have different character names and everything like that, and their characters go as such. Okay, my sister is very, very bitchy towards this guy. Okay, the character of the guy who's played by my friend. Now the guy is completely submissive to her. He does everything that she could ever ask for, right? He brings her flowers and chocolate, and he's super romantic. He says the cheesiest things in the world. Everything that girl typically says she wants, right? And she treats him like shit. And then at the end of the video, we end off by saying, by having my sister on the phone with one of her friends, right? And she's saying, oh my God, he's treating you like that? Blah, 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 blah. And then the guy comes into the room and says, what's wrong? What's wrong, honey? And my sister goes, I just got off the phone with Stacy. Her boyfriend's treating her, so badly and things like that. I can't believe it. Men are so trash nowadays, right? And that's a typical thing that they say on Twitter is men are just trash nowadays, or men are just trash, right? And that's where the video ends. And we're trying to send this message of the modern male and female dynamic in today's world, where the girls will have guys thrown at them. Okay, guys will throw themselves at girls, giving them what they want, meaning chocolates, flowers. They'll be super romantic, all these things that they ask for, and nothing happens. Or not nothing happens, but they either get rejected, or if they are accepted, they're put into the beta status. You know what I mean? The beta male role, which it's so screwed up. Females have a lot more power in the dating game, that nowadays than they used to. And that's just getting worse and worse through feminism.
I think it's getting worse and worse in general, as this whole society that we live in is being controlled more and more by social media. So a voice is being amplified in respect to, the feminist side of society. Okay. You have movements like the Me Too movement, feminists, leftists in general. They're having such a huge voice and such a huge influence, right? So no one can deny the influence of leftist views in universities, influence in politics, influence in movies and songs that we listen to. So much of the influence is spreaded. It's
it's spread, yeah.
It's pretty much proliferated in multiple directions in every category in society. And it's growing and growing, right? So I think what's to blame, or if there is anything to blame, social media in general. It's such a powerful tool. So going back to your skit on YouTube, this idea that a woman can never be pleased, I think is the ultimate goal there. I think that idea was very evident back in the day when society was becoming more modern. So like during the 1940s maybe, when this whole idea, or probably during the 1960s when the birth control pill came out, and then a sexual revolution just happened out of nowhere. So this idea
that completely changed the dating game.
Completely, yeah.
Yeah, people don't realize that, it's like when you have control over the birth and you're giving it to women, what happens is they see, okay, now we're going into more of the dating dynamic stuff again.
We always do.
We always end up here somehow. It always ends up there. I think it has a major effect, though, in today's world, okay?
Sure.
Here's the thing, they say women are the sexual selectors of the species, okay? If you
Who's they?
read,
Who's they? Just people in general?
If you, you should look up something called Briffault's Law. And that says anytime any association with a man is made from a woman, there's a reason for that association. Otherwise, she would not be talking to you. Does that make sense? Now, whether you're going to be put into an alpha male role or a beta male role is up to her. And now it's a very simple argument. It's a very simplified alpha beta dynamic, right? And that's too simple because alpha and beta there's not only two types of guys out there, right? There's a whole spectrum of guys. But generalizing, let's say, alpha is the guy that she wants to have babies with. Beta is the guy who is to provide for those babies. Okay. Now, here's the thing. Women are not necessarily aware that their subconscious mind goes through all this kind of thing, right? But if you look through their menstrual cycle and how it fluctuates and their hormones change during ovulation and how they prefer certain types of guys during menstruation or during ovulation versus when you're not ovulating, you will start to see certain patterns there. You will start to see that there was research done on how I think it was like 50% of the males in our evolutionary past succeeded in breeding, whereas 100% of women did. So if every woman had one child, then only half the men had kids. Does that make
Yep.
sense? The other half didn't have. So
Only
it's
half of them
basically
survived.
right, and pass on their genetics. And now here's the thing,
Bloodline.
right? Is the top those 50% of men that actually survived and passed on their genes, they had two kids, right? Let's say if there's 100 women, right? They all had one kid, and 100 men, only 50 of them would have kids. The other 50 would die without reproducing because women are very sexually selective, right? Especially in the female species.
Yeah.
Now, 50% of men would succeed in having kids, but they would have two kids, right? Whereas every woman would have one. 50% of the men would have two, and the other 50 would have zero. Does that make sense? So there's it's very skewed.
So what are you trying to tell me? That 50% of men now have no chance?
I'm not saying 50% of men have no chance.
Okay.
I'm saying that's evidence that was written in. It was written in Jordan Peterson's book, right? It was somewhere in the Rational Mail how he said actually it was 2080,
Yeah, I
but
remember
it
that.
wasn't.
Yeah.
Huh?
I remember that. It was 80-20 in respect to the...
Yeah. Now, the thing is that there have been controls over because of the fact that women are so sexually selective and the vast majority of men suffered back in those days. They created institutions like religion and things like that, monogamy, to prevent this from happening, so as to give every single man a chance to reproduce and have kids, right? And this was disempowering women essentially because they did not have control over their sexual selection criteria. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now, this was changed when the birth control pill came about and through feminism. Okay. Nowadays, it's extremely bad because hypergamy, which is women's sexual strategy, is basically it's everywhere. You start to see it, and what's even worse is you'll see it in the single mommy phenomenon, right? You see these single moms, where they will have a kid. The dad has left because let's say he was I don't know, let's say he was the alpha male, but he decided to have kids with someone else, or he left or something like that. Now this woman is left with kids, and she'll end up finding some guy to provide for her and to raise those kids and to have and she'll use all of these moral sorts of arguments, right, to get him to raise the kids, right?
Yeah.
As in, you're such a great guy, so many guys out there are assholes, they just leave and, but those guys are the ones who were successful in breeding. Does that make sense? Whereas these guys, they did not. Now, women given the control of their birth means, what does this mean? The reason this changed the whole game so much is because this basically took out the risk in sex resulting in pregnancies, correct? Now, what happens is women are very, very good at hiding who in their life is the alpha male and who in their life is the beta male. Okay.
Really?
And plus whatever other, yes, they're very good at it, right?
Explain.
Because
Yeah.
so okay. Women have something called estrus, right? It's an estrus state. You will read this in the Rational Male, the third book, okay? How remember we talked about ovulation is a certain 7 to 10 day period in their menstrual cycle where their hormones are extremely prone for wanting the alpha male, which is more of the bad boy, the jerk, right? The guy very high status guys, who she actually wants to have babies with, okay? Exactly, sexual selection, that's what it is. Now, these are the guys that she would want to have kids with, right? She's prone in this 7 to 10 day period hormonally to want those guys. This is funny enough the time of the month where she will reach out to alpha ex-boyfriends. She will reach out to the guy from work or some other, create some BS reason to talk to him or whatever. And she won't even understand why she's doing it. She won't understand, like, why is it that I'm not, horny for this really sweet guy who wants to give me the world, but I can't stop obsessing over the guy who's casually indifferent to me, who just doesn't even notice that I'm here. Does that make sense? It just doesn't make sense to her, right? Because she doesn't understand her own attraction mechanism. Now, anyways, going back to the thing is, remember, women have two types of sex, which is validational and transactional sex.
Uh-huh.
And in other primates, right, like chimpanzees, estrus, meaning the time when the female chimps are ovulating, they go through physical changes. Their lips become bigger, things like that are very, like, you can see these changes, okay? Very, very clearly. So males will know when she's ready to have kids. So there's no point, you cannot tell, when a woman is ready to have a kid. But what happens now is we're not the same as chimps. Female human beings have a hidden estrus state, meaning you cannot just tell by looking at a girl whether she's ovulating or not. Does that make sense? Or whether she's in a period to have kids or not, whether she's at that time of the month, right? Where it's the best time to get pregnant. So what happened was evolutionary, psychology or evolutionary, I guess DNA samples or whatever have proven that women were very good at actually what's called cuckoldry, which is cheating on their man, having kids with someone else, which is the alpha male in this case, then having the other guy raise those kids, thinking that those were his kids. Now, men have actually developed what are called mate guarding behaviors to counter this, which is jealousy, right? Which is why, this is a male mechanism to make sure that the kid is his own. Does that make sense? So this is why males get very jealous easily. When a girl flirts with another guy or talks to another guy, they want to know, if she does get pregnant, is that going to be my kid or is it going to be his kid? Is she going to cheat behind my back or no? That type of thing, right? So, anyways, I'm turning it into a very complicated thing here, but so the birth control pill, okay, essentially takes the risk out of sex leading to pregnancy, right? So if she's on the birth control pill, she can confuse guys as to who she's having sex with for validational reasons,
Or
to have the kid
reasons.
with, or transactional reasons, or if he's a beta, right? So she can, if she's trying to keep a guy's attention around, for example, she'll just pop a pill. Okay, let's get
Pop
this
a
over
pill.
with. Like she did,
Yeah.
meaning birth control.
Yeah, I know
pill.
what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. And so have sex with that guy, and he's providing the resources. Let's say, okay, kind of let's just get this over with. He'll stay around because he's getting sex, right?
Yep.
And she's not risking getting
Why else
pregnant.
would a guy wouldn't stay around?
Yeah, I mean, men's biological imperative. You know how they say the female sexual strategy is alpha fucks beta bucks. The men's sexual strategy is to spread the seed, right? That's what it is. It's to have as much sex. That's why men are known to be, I guess these chauvinist pigs, right? These guys who just want to have sex all the time. That's
let's
just
stop
part of
right
our
there.
biological drive. Yeah.
In respect to our own preferences, do you honestly feel like that? That your imperative is to spread your seed?
I don't necessarily. I wouldn't say so. No, I probably wouldn't say that.
Okay.
But here's the thing, right? That doesn't stop my brain from thinking, wow, that girl's hot. Wow, that girl's hot. I would have sex with that girl. Like
That's a
when I'm
natural
just walking on the
response.
streets, right?
Yeah.
It's a natural response, right? And every guy goes through it at one point or another, right? They're like, wow, it's just that's just testosterone speaking, right? That's your chemical, your hormonal balance speaking for you, right? That is your natural tendency, right? I'm not saying every single woman goes through hypergamy and does alpha fucks beta bucks, but what I'm saying is this is her natural tendency. Does that make sense? Just like guys have a natural tendency to want to have sex with lots of girls, that's their imperative, is to spread the seed, right? Women's is different. their imperative, their natural impulse is to, is alpha flux beta bucks or alpha seed beta need. But not every woman will act on this. Does that make sense? There are various factors that will prevent her from acting on this, such as religion, such as culture, such as her sexual market value, such as, just different things, right? So you have to really, really analyze a situation in depth to really know. Sometimes it even goes into the whole financial situation of a girl, right? Sometimes a girl will, drop alpha males if they don't provide for them and go to a guy who's a beta, but then the guy thinks, what the hell? Like, I was an alpha male. Like, why wouldn't you want to keep me, It's because you were an asshole who didn't provide for her. And she needs providership, right? Especially if she's not financially secure or stable. So she'll go to a guy who's going to, like, provide for her financially. Does that make sense? Things like that. It's very complicated. But essentially what I'm trying to get to is it's your natural impulse as a guy to want to spread the seed. But that doesn't mean every guy will. Does that make sense? Because there's limitations. Me personally, I want to settle down and have kids one day. I do. I'm not ready for that now, obviously. But because I do want to play the field a little bit, soon, within my 20s. Maybe in my 30s, if I find a really nice girl that I like, I would ideally want to settle down with that one girl.
You want to play around. You want to explore the options that you have, correct, before you're able to settle down?
Exactly, because especially in today's state, you're to find quality girls that are going to really, I don't want to say quality girls. I don't want to fall into that trap.
In a form, you're practicing your own alpha fucks beta bucks because you're trying to figure out which girl is the best for you, right?
Yes. But mine is not based on providership needs and everything, right? Mine is based on how great is the girl. So the better the girl, the more I want to keep her. Does that make sense? That's not necessarily the case for women. Does that make sense?
What defines great for you, though?
Lots of things, right?
Lots of things.
Personality.
A girl would say the same, to be honest.
Right. To the two top things that comes to my mind are looks and personality. There are a lot of good-looking girls out there with a really shitty personality, so that wouldn't fit my match, right? Good to have, great. Like I find you sexually attractive, and I would have sex with you, but I would not have a long-term relationship with a girl like you. There are girls out there with great personalities, unfortunately, not sexually attractive. Okay, but if they fit both of these criterias, that would be great. And what I mean by personality is it's more complicated than just saying, oh, they have a great personality. What I mean by personality is that they are compatible with you, meaning compatibility, meaning like she's a feminine girl who supports my mission in life, supports me doing what I want when I want to, is not gonna bug me, because I'm not doing, the dishes or taking out the trash. She has a mentality of like, I know my man's busy, but he's getting shit done. Like that's what keeps me attracted to him. Like, and she clearly sees me as an alpha male who she tamed and got the best of both worlds of this whole alpha beta dynamic. Does that make sense? And if that is the case, I would, huh?
It kind of does, yeah. Because I think your mentality is to validate that you are an alpha male, so that when a good-looking woman comes along that fits your bill of being good-looking and good personality, she is able to tame you down, thereby validating that you are an alpha male.
Yes. So it's a win-win situation.
Yeah. So I think
because
in retrospect, you're looking for validation in general, wouldn't you say? I'm just being skeptical here.
Sure. Okay. I would say partially, yeah, but there's a lot of things to have in a relationship that I think you would miss out on if you don't go down that road. Does that make sense? I mean, I can't stay single my entire life. I personally, that's not what I would want. Does that make sense? Like I would eventually want to settle down. You see what I'm saying? But again, like I said before, I would have to explore options. You see what I'm saying? But I definitely think there are quality girls out there, right? Ones that I would essentially have to date to understand and get to know. And yeah, I mean, it's complicated, like I said, but the reason I would ideally have to know that she sees me as an alpha is because if she doesn't, well, what's the alternative? If she sees me as the beta, then what? Then I'm going to be in a state of misery for the rest of my life because I'm settling down with this one girl.
What if she
So
fits the bill, though? What if she was good looking and a good personality, but she saw you as beta? Do you have to drop her?
I absolutely, yeah, I have to. It cannot, that doesn't fit my criteria because I absolutely cannot. Because if she sees me like that, she's not going to ever really love me. You see what I'm saying? Women will only ever, this is the case, right? You know, the whole 50 Shades of Grey like thing where they see the guy that they want. I remember what I told you on the last podcast. Women want to find alpha fucks, beta bucks all in one guy. Ideally, that's what traditionally what they want, right? But nowadays it's become so the characteristics of an alpha just don't match with the characteristics of the beta. Does that make sense? And very few women will lock that alpha down because, again, remember, 80% want 80% of women want the top 20% of men. So only 20% of those women will end up getting that 20% of men. Does that make sense? In that monogamous relationship. And some of those men won't even settle down. Does that make sense? Ever. I mean, eventually, maybe when they're like 40s in some cases, right? But the case being that essentially what I'm saying is, the game, in my opinion, is to work on yourself, self-improvement, and what this will naturally cause you have good game. Obviously, what I mean by good game is high status, masculine nature, which, by the way, make you a man of good character as well. If you're a masculine man, right? Things like that. Understand the aspects of masculinity, the positive aspects. Things like that, be able to exemplify those. And there are women out there who are naturally in their feminine energy who will bond with you well if you are in your masculine. Does that make sense? Now, if that is the case, there are a few criteria you would have to meet in order for you to have a long-lasting relationship, right? Like I said before, I don't think that there being a one for you is impossible. I just think it's toxic if you think that one role can only be fulfilled by one girl ever. Does that make sense? Yeah. Instead of having this tunnel abundance vision mentality. Yeah. So if you come in with this mindset of I'm not going to settle until I find, I'm going to keep dating around, I'm going to explore my options, and I'm going to present the best version of myself out there, the self-improved version, right? And that will naturally attract a lot of girls who see me as the guy, as above them in sexual market value, which classifies me as alpha, right? I essentially make them, I have to make sure that to her it's like I don't want her to ever feel like she's settled for someone. If that's the case, I'm out. Like, that's clearly a sign and indication that I'm the beta in this case. Does that make sense? Yeah. But the key, in my opinion, for a man to have a happy relationship, if he wants one, at the end of the day, in the long run, right, is to go in with an alpha mindset and to make sure that his girl sees him as alpha and that he actually likes this girl and would ideally want to be with her long term for whatever his criteria may be. That's essentially what I'm trying to get at.
Okay. So I forgot the original question we're trying to ask here, but
the validation you
Okay. Yeah. So it's complicated in respect to knowing whether you're the alpha or the beta, because I think it's very difficult to figure out what the girl you're pursuing is thinking, right? Because she's obviously going to play shit tests, and she's obviously going to keep you guessing. So
yeah, that's part of the game for women, right? So
I think that's just how they communicate naturally, is that they need to test you constantly to make sure that you're suitable and that you're a masculine figure that they could look up to or depend on. So
Right. Yeah, 100%.
it's
A
kind of
shit test
complicated.
is it's like a value test, right? Am I really with the guy who's better than me? Is this really the best I can do? Is the question that hypergamy always asks. That's why she shit tests her man, right? It's like if he passes that shit test, then it's her subconscious mind is satisfied, that I chose the right guy.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because we always end up in this corner of the conversation where we're always talking about the laws of
Seriously.
dating and just hypergamy in general. So,
Yeah. It's
I,
funny because I used to just think about dating advice, but since reading The Rational Male and not just the first book, the entire series, there's I realize there's so many more implications on society in general, right? And how feminism has affected all of these principles and how the state of today's feminine and masculine is just completely out of whack and how you know just the broader implications of like the sexual revolution, the pill being introduced, how crazy, how one small thing like that can change so much down the road, so much, right? And imagine how different the world would be today if that had not been introduced, right?
right. It has definitely revolutionized a lot of the social aspect of just culture in general. Um,
Yeah.
but I want to ask a question. So,
Uh
in
huh.
respect to your other friends besides me,
Yeah.
when you're discussing this kind of uh, this topic,
Yeah.
do you think that many people don't like to have this conversation because uh, the kind of context you are describing is too tyrannical, or is it that they just don't want to
Okay.
accept it because they know they have no chance in this kind of game?
Interesting question. Okay, I think it depends on who you're talking about, but I do have a couple of examples in my mind of, I'm not going to name names, but of
Right.
guys
Yeah.
who I feel like deep down they don't think they have a shot or a chance, and it's not even just that they don't have a shot or a chance, but their ego is so invested in this idea of like you got to be like super nice, you got to do this, you got to do that, right? Women essentially training him to be this beta role. But the problem is, I don't think he has it in him, or he thinks that he doesn't have it in him. Does that make sense? And therefore, he will never accept it. He will always find some reason to go against it. And here's the worst part: is he has not even read the books. He has not even listened to the full argument, or even really a simplified version of the argument. That's like, it's like he dismisses all sort of credibility immediately. But why? Um, if you ask me deep down, I think it's that, yeah, you're right, they don't have a shot in the game, but even more so is that their previous experiences clearly indicate that they were the beta in that situation, and they don't want to ever feel like they were used as well either. Does that make sense? A couple of the guys I know have gone through multiple situations, not just one, multiple, in which in all those cases they didn't learn anything from those situations. Because with me, I've personally I've been the beta before. I have 100%, and it was very evident and clear to me, and I knew something was wrong there. You see, but I had to learn, right? They say that there was a one dating coach who said that no alpha is a natural made alpha. There is no such thing. They all had to learn at one point. Some learned earlier at an earlier age and are slightly better at naturally implementing it, which we call the naturals, right? Others have to learn the hard way. And some people don't learn at all. They keep going through the same experiences and they blame the women. Now, if I told them this idea, what are they going to do? They can't blame the women anymore, because it's like, oh shit, well, what if it was me? What if I messed up here? What if I'm just this guy that's just not attracted to women? Like, that idea really messes with their heads, I think. um I don't know. I think that's maybe what it is. But I don't think that that's good enough reason. If they want to get into the dating game, they should work on themselves. I think self-improvement. You can get there. It might take you a little longer, but you can get there.
Right.
If you're telling me it's hard to get into the top 20% of men, if you really work on yourself and if you've seen how the masses have operated, I think you can get there. If you really work on it. That's the
Right.
thing.
And from their attitude, do you really think that they want to be in that top 20%? Like they really desire
It,
that type of status?
I think they do, but I think that they deep down don't have the self-image to really think that they can get there. Right? And that's why they vehemently deny everything that I've told them about this kind of stuff. It's like, no, dude, you're wrong. Or like, why do you have to make such a simple argument about alpha and beta? It's like, it's more complicated than that. And I agree, it is more, right? There's a whole spectrum, right? But we are trying to get down to the general truth of things. We are trying to boil this down to how it works. We are trying to find the truth here. We're not trying to please our egos through the pleasure principle here. If you can't do that, then you're not going to be able to accept these ideas. Does that make sense? Because they're too harsh for your ego to handle. But you know what's funny? Actually, I was watching a Joe Rogan podcast with Neil deGrasse Tyson yesterday, and I really love this because one of the things that he mentioned was and he's been contemplating this for a while, okay? And I loved this idea because I 100% agreed with it. It's absolutely critical to understand this, okay? There are 3 types of truths, okay? Number 1 is the objective truth, okay? This is true. These objective truths are true whether you want them to be or not. They are just factually true, okay?
Yeah.
Number 2 is personal truths, right? Personal truths meaning these are things like religion. You can never it's very hard to convince someone that their religion has, I don't know, I guess maybe brainwashed them, or that, I don't know, like their religion is wrong, right? You should never debate someone who's very religious about religion. That's just not that's a recipe for disaster.
It's like a spiritual thing. Yeah. People have that kind of
Yeah,
tendency to defend their own. It's natural.
points of view, right? Now, those are called personal truths, which are, true if you believe they're true. And the third type is the political truth, which is, if repeated enough times, then it becomes the truth, right? Meaning like, if the Trump campaign consistently calls Hillary Clinton Crooked Hillary, people will say, oh, what's her first name? Oh, it's Crooked, isn't it? And, it's like, or global warming is a hoax, right?
Yeah.
If you say it enough times, people will believe it, and without actually verifying and things like that. Now, these ideas, the rational male ideas, in my opinion, a lot of them have, a lot of backed up data through evolutionary psychology, research on, hormones and how they affect women's behaviors and attitudes, especially by a doctor from UCLA. Her name was Dr. Marty Hasselton, and the Rational Male uses her work a lot for to present his arguments. Okay, and keep in mind also, Dr. Marty Hasselton is a woman as well, and she even says women are prone to different behaviors towards men on different times of the month, which clearly shows a difference in their case. Okay. Anyways, besides all of this, there's a lot of rationality, logic, science, evolutionary psychology, evolutionary theory, biology, psychology, all this kind of stuff backing up the rational male's theories. And not to mention so many men who have reported story after story after story of how, whether, I don't know, they got cheated on, or their girlfriend left them, or I don't know, something happened, right? Countless stories, and how when they started acting differently, the results were different. we have generalized this down. Now, why people would vehemently argue against that when it's I don't want to say a clear consensus, but there is somewhat of a general consensus on how this stuff works, you know?
Yeah.
I don't get why people would deny that. And I think it really comes down to you either think you can't do it or you just you don't want to for whatever other reason, you know? And that's why you start to deny ideas like alpha fucks beta bucks, right? You're just like, no, that can't be true. Like monogamy, right?
Yeah. Repeat it often, and I think their mind has convinced themselves that it is the truth that they should live by. So
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that we always have this kind of conversation, and it acts as if you are defending the theory that we both engage in. And
I am, yeah, I really
everyone
am.
else
It's
you know
yeah.
pretty much defies it. Is that correct to say?
Yes, yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Because you always act
It's
as
funny
if,
because
yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
you're always defending it. That was pretty much my point there.
Yeah. Because I don't know. It just makes so much sense to me, and it seems like I don't know. Like I see it, you know. I see it too much now, and it's not just the rational male, right? There's all these. I've seen what like 15 to 20 different dating coaches, their advice on all this kind of stuff, and they literally there are similarities and there are differences, but there are a lot more similarities than differences. And it all pretty much boils down to these theories right here. It's very evident and clear now to me. And that's why I protect these ideas. Does that make sense? Because I feel like I've done enough research on this to understand and know more than the average person, you know, and I think this is really on to something. And it's funny because I was talking to some friends yesterday, and they said something very similar. They're like you defend this idea, you know, so much, and I
Because you guys
tell them
don't
like,
believe it.
look, because you got exactly that's part of the reason. Like it's because you guys make it so frustrating that I have to argue. Like it's like you guys don't even take an interest in it half the time. It's like, you know, they think The Rational Male is this really manipulative book on how to manipulate women into liking you and stuff. And I'm
That's how it
like,
comes
dude, that's
off, yeah.
not a, it comes off like that maybe, but it's if you read into it, there's so much more to it, right? There's so much more analysis in it. But you know, they said like you vehemently defend it, and I say, well, number one is, you know, because you guys deny it. Number two is because here's the thing. Number two is if there's something better that comes along, a better theory, and I like it more, and I think it's more logical, it's more rational, it's more correct and true, I will accept that one. I'm not so stuck in my mind that this is the only way. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I got accused of being closed-minded because because I was sticking so hard to this point of view, and I would argue, in fact, that I'm more open-minded than they are, and that they're closed-minded because they won't. They have not done any research on this kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
They want to come to conclusions on their own based on what culture has told them and what their morality suits them to want to do. Does that make sense? So their morality will say, oh, you can't do that. That's like wrong. And I'm like, dude, this is how it works. I'm sorry. But if you look at it, you know, look at the theories, look at the rationality. Here's the science. Here's the data to back it up. Here are the evidence as provided by testimonial stories on, you know, the Red Pill Forum. And it's not just one author, The Rational Male. There's a whole blog. There's so many blogs out there with all these, you know, people who have experimented with these ideas. So I have actual reasoning to believe this is true. Who the fuck are you, right? Like,
Yeah.
you see what I'm saying? Like, why should I believe you versus them?
I think what makes it so frustrating is because they don't have a lot of rational thought in respect to their own views, right? So here you are coming to the table with your own research and your own ideas, which are quite rational. But when you compare this to their beliefs with not much thought into them, to be
Yeah.
honest, it gets frustrating because it's like, well, my argument's sound. Why aren't you considering it at least? And their morality kicks in and says,
Yeah.
no, that's not how it's going to go. I'm not going to
Yeah.
believe that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It can get frustrating. It really can. Because this amount of research that you've done has really brought you to understand not only yourself, but just the dynamics of how to be successful
Yeah.
with your own masculinity and how to be successful with development in general, self development. So
Right.
it's provided a lot of enlightenment, for lack of better
Yeah.
words.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much.
What are
Only
your thoughts on this? I know I've been speaking a little bit much on this, but I haven't gotten your opinion on
no
this.
worries. I mean, you've done most of the research more than I have, so you've surpassed me. I was
Coming from the guy who actually introduced this to me. Thank you, by the way.
you have passed the master long ago.
Do I get
So, yeah.
like a medal or something?
You get knowledge, and you get the school of the people.
Right. Right.
So no worries. It's a good thing to be rational about this on these theories and constantly analyzing them. In respect to my own views, I've pretty much stopped thinking so hard about it in respect to
Right.
the dynamics between men and women and how uh, history has played a role and things like that. As you can tell, I'm kind of falling toward the pathway of not being involved at all in this whole pyramid, in the dating game, and becoming an alpha.
Right.
I'm not really aiming toward becoming an alpha, to be honest.
Okay.
That doesn't mean that I'm like some lazy guy who's a beta and who doesn't like do
Right.
anything productive.
Right.
I'm constantly developing myself where in respect to taking care of my health. I work out in the morning, which I'm going to do at 6 o'clock right now. So
Oh,
I'm
dang.
making,
You wake up that early?
yeah, I do. So I'm trying to
Oh,
get into
wow.
that habit. Yeah, because I have so much time in the day where if I wake up later, I don't have that much time. But if I wake up earlier, I have more time. That's kind of a
Okay.
time issue thing that I'm doing. So I'm getting used to that habit.
Okay.
But being productive and being developing is my kind of perspective. When someone approaches me with a different mindset and with a mindset of very anti-rational male, I don't defend it as much as you would in that scenario. Reason being is because I stopped giving a crap about convincing other people. So it's kind of like, okay, I'm going to leave you to your own views. I have my own beliefs and my own analysis on these types of situations in respect to alpha males, beta males, and how alpha fucks beta bucks. I stopped trying to give people the red pill. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's a tough pill to swallow. So
It's
you're
exhausting
it's gonna
trying to get them to
yeah.
swallow it, or even try to present
Yeah.
them with a rational argument on the ideas of this dynamic that we're trying to convey.
Yeah.
So
It's funny. Remember how I brought up the three personal truths, or
Yeah.
the three truths, right? The second one being personal truth, and I would like to believe that this stuff is the first one, which is objective truth, or at least more so to objective truth, not necessarily 100% concrete, but it is true, whether people like to believe it or not. I think a lot of guys fall into this camp of it's a personal thing, a personal belief, or a
it's a very
personal truth.
personal concept. So it really touches their
Right.
masculinity in general. So that's why it gets them all moral
Right.
ish kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and so Neil deGrasse Tyson was saying, never argue a personal truth with anybody because you're not going to get anywhere. It's a recipe for disaster. You are literally attacking their very being. They're attacking their ego. They're attacking everything, and it's not going to work.
You can't say God is
You're
dead.
going to make them question
say
too
that.
much, and it's going to hurt.
Yeah.
So
It does hurt to other people, to be honest, because they live their life in such a way where they believe that this personal truth is so universal law,
Yeah.
and they live by it. So when you come and by and tell them that it's wrong, things get very heated and things get very nasty. Um,
Right.
so, in respect to my own view on this, I stopped, you know, trying to get other people to join or to see like the arguments and the rationality behind it. Because I'm pretty much going my own way, as you can tell,
Yeah. Yeah.
in respect to my own development. So,
Right. I'm actually I guess I'm in a similar way. I'm in a similar boat to you, because I'm not in the dating game right now. I'm just working. I'm completely absorbed in working on myself right now,
right.
for at least the next year or two. I'm not going to be dating any girls,
Hmm.
and it's the primary reason for that is because I'm still working on myself in general, right? I'm, consistently working out, like, this, so like I counting all the calories and crap,
Yep.
all this kind of stuff. I'm not. It's time. It's a time waste, right? If it's a complete waste of time if you're not getting much out of it.
I think it's a waste
So
of time to be in the dating game right now, as of we are, because
okay,
it takes a lot of effort to be in the dating game in general, right? So you've had this experience where, you have to play the social game, you have to understand the dynamics, and you have to really be not a master, but you have to be a good, uh, you have to be good at recognizing social movements and body language and how they interact and things like that. Um,
right, like subcommunications,
yeah,
status, the whole
it,
hierarchy, all that kind of
that takes a lot of skill, right? And that takes a lot of practice to even be decent at it. So,
right,
the reason why I'm not in the dating game, and I haven't been in the dating game for a while now, probably over for a year,
yeah,
is because one, uh, if I were to enter the dating game, I want to at least have some decency in respect to the skills. Like being social, things like that. Because I'm not really in a social circle and I don't have that much status. So I feel like if I were to enter the dating game right now, I would be at a very
right,
huge disadvantage because I'm
uh
not I'm not on social media. No one really knows me. I'm kind
right,
of like this figure that no one understands.
uh huh,
Because I'm not really expressive in a lot of ways. So
okay.
maybe the mystery is attractive. Who knows? But
I was gonna say that's the pro
that's the pro.
point that you made there.
Yeah.
The pro point that you made there was the mystery.
I don't do that on purpose. It's just that I don't give a crap.
Yeah, yeah. It's indifference, right? Like that's what creates a
Indifference.
lot of mystery. Yeah,
It is true, yeah.
yeah,
Because everyone's going through their own thing, and I'm busy here and there, and I'm trying to develop.
right,
So I'm struggling too, academically, physically through working out. Worrying about the future because I'm going to graduate soon in 2020. So,
right, right.
and then you're
Yeah, yeah.
busy as
That's
well.
yeah. I mean, it's very crucial at this stage to get a career set, also, for yourself, and find out what you want to pursue in life and what makes you happy and that sort of thing. That's what I'm trying to figure out, And honestly, like one of the things, and I love to have conversations in general. That's why I was like, you know what? Can you imagine if like I could just podcast all the time? Like that's why I love to do this,
24/7.
Yeah.
The live show with Parth, where he talks to anything about anything.
Yeah,
Anyone
I
about
will talk
anything.
about anything.
That's
I would
true.
love to talk about anything.
That is true. Yeah, nothing is off limits. You can talk about, I don't know. What's something that you would talk about that you usually don't talk about?
I don't know, the I don't know, the making of bracelets. I don't know, cotton, and how
Yeah.
it's in the fabric of clothes, and how the process of making clothes is like. I don't know.
Speaking
I could
about a
talk about
random
anything,
topic,
honestly.
yeah, we're going to have that kind of episode next time because we're going to have that educational segment where we're going to talk about
Yeah.
just
What is it going to be on?
we agreed on freeways, little sneak peek
Yes.
in LA
Yes.
and the history behind
Freeways in
those
LA.
because you're very
Yeah.
familiar with them. And then, I grew up taking freeways here and there. So,
Sadly familiar with them. I've had to drive through them so many times.
yeah, just a little
It's
educational
bad.
thing that we're going to dive into. But as of right
Yeah,
now,
yeah,
yeah, I think we should call this an episode, to be honest, because we're kind of hitting that
yeah,
2 hour mark.
for sure. That sounds good.
All right. So thank you for joining us if you're still listening. And we appreciate the view. And thank you for
Awesome.
tolerating our voices and our ideas and just our rambling in general.
Our ideas are pretty radical. So
Pretty radical, yeah.
yeah,
So, but we'll continue to do that if you like that. So,
awesome, awesome.
okay. Any last words?
No, not really. Yeah, just enjoy the next episode. That's it, pretty much.
Here on Odyssey. Thanks for tuning in.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.